Your class, you're on camera right now. Say hello.
So on that second row, so 1, 2, this middle column right here, I want you to go ahead and scratch out 24 in the fifth and replace that with 12 into the fifth. Meant to make that change last night and forgot whenever I was printing this morning. So, my bad. Alright, now let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite thing in the world, factoring. Not factories, no. Factoring. So remember, factoring is like breaking it up into smaller pieces. So in the past, we've been talking about breaking up an equation that only has x to the squared. Today I'm going to show you how to do it if it's x to the third, x to the fourth, x to the 1200th, basically any level of x, or any exponent of x. So, the very first step in a two-step process is we're going to check for a greatest common factor, or a GCF. Again, we're thinking back to like 7th grade. So, if I have 2x squared plus 4x, for a beast point, somebody tell me, raise your hand, what exactly would you use, or what is the greatest common factor of 2x squared plus 4x? What do the two components have in common? You ready?
2.
They do have 2 in common. So, if it says to factor something out, I'm going to go ahead and write a 2. You ready? Does 2x squared and 4x, do those two components have anything else in common?
1.
They got 1 in common. So what about this? So if I say 2x squared and 4x, do I say the same letter in each of those? Or do they have a variable in common?
Well, they have a.
Correct. They both have x in common. Thank you, really. So 2x squared and 4x have x and 2 in common. So in other words, 2x is a common factor. So if it says factor something out, it means we are going to remove the 2x. So 2x times x gives us 2x squared. 2x times positive 2 would give us 4x. So again, whenever it says to factor a term out, this is what it refers to. It means that we are removing something in common between all of the components inside the parentheses. And here's that second step. You're going to count the number of terms inside the parentheses. If you have 2 terms, you're going to go ahead and try to locate if it matches a pattern. Specifically, one of these 3 patterns. Good news, you don't have to memorize these 3 because all 3 of them are on your reference sheet. So that means that you're going to have it for every quiz, every exam, any assessment where you might be needed to use one of these 3 patterns, you're going to have these available. Don't have to spend that energy trying to memorize them. Now, if there are 3 terms, you're going to use the X box. So I won't harp on that. We should all be very familiar with that. And lastly, if you have 4 terms, we are going to go and group. You may reach that by the end of class today. We may have to spill over to tomorrow. But go ahead and jump into some examples. So, how about Marlene? Marlene, A. Looking at problem A right here, what do those 3 components, or those 3 terms, what do they have in common?
X.
X. So, that means the greatest common factor for A is x. So that means that I can remove x from the equation. So x times what gives me x cubed? Well, x squared. X times what gives me 4x squared? Well, 4x. And x times what gives me 5x? Well, just 5. Now, Leo, what do I do if I have 3 terms? X box, right? It's math class, but we're reading. So, we're going to use the X box with 3 terms. Remember, last term goes on top, so -5, -4 on bottom. So, if I were to factor these together, have 5 and 1. Now, which of those is negative, Barbara? How come? Okay, who can help Barbara out? Why is 5 negative? I agree, but why? Leslie.
So that when you add the 1 to the -5, it gives you -4.
Exactly. So, whenever you add 1 to -5, that's going to give you -4. Remember, whenever you one of them is negative, if the bottom is negative, the larger number must be your negative. So that tells me then that my factors are x minus 5 and x plus 1. And I cannot forget about this number that I factored out earlier. Alright, I want you to go ahead and try factoring out whatever the term is, or the greatest common factor from B. We're going to come back together in about 30 seconds after you've factored out the greatest common factor from B. That's good. Missing some of you. Okay. Now, they have more common than that. You're on the right track. Okay. So you're correct. So 2 and 32 have something else in common. They have a common factor. Okay, so let's come back together and let me hear from, how about Javier? Javier, what did 2 and 32 have in common? What factor? 2, right? 32, or 2 is a factor of 32. It is also a factor of 2. So, we know that we can factor out 2. Now, they also, both terms have y, do they not? So, that means that we can factor out a y, which I saw a lot of you doing. However, whenever both terms have y, or the same variable, we can factor out the y value that has the lowest exponent. So in this case, we have y to the 5th and y cubed. So that means that we can factor out y cubed. So that's going to leave us with y squared and 16, because 2 times 16 gives us 32. Now, Brian, we have 2 terms, right? So how do we factor that? Looking back at our steps, what do you need to use?
Formula chart.
Right, we need to use that formula chart. So we're going to use one of these 3 patterns. So we have a square and subtraction. So that means that the only pattern this could possibly fit is this difference of squares pattern. Now, in order for it to fit a pattern, to fit that pattern, we have to be able to rewrite 16 as a square. Can we rewrite 16 as a square? In other words, does some number squared equal 16? What? 4, right? 16 is a perfect square. So we can go ahead and rewrite this as 2y cubed times y squared minus 4 squared. So that means that we have a difference of squares here. If we have a difference of squares, we are going to take whatever our first term is, label that A. Our second term is B. And we're going to replace whatever is inside the parentheses that fits this pattern with whatever is right here. So in this case, we're going to replace y squared minus 4 squared with y minus 4 times y plus 4. Alright, this is not an easy concept to get. I understand that. That's why I want to give us as much practice time as possible. So, I want you to go ahead and start problem C. Okay, C follows the same idea as A. You get C, move on to those next 3 practice problems. We're going to come back together in 4 minutes. Once you think you get C, call me over and I'll come check you. Right now, work on C though. But yeah, otherwise, first, back up to the what each of these terms have in common. All have C's, right? So, what's the biggest one? C, 4, C cubed, and C squared. So, you factor out the C with the lowest. So you can factor out C squared. What else can you factor out? So, what's common between 5, 30, and 4? You can factor out 5. Now, you also have C to the 4, C cubed, and C squared. So factor out 5C squared. Factoring out variable, lowest x sub, right? And factoring out whatever multiples common all. So we do the last one. Yeah, okay. We've already removed this, right? This must be 45. This must be 3 minus 2. No. Yeah, it's just 30Z. Yeah. Now, what do you do with this?
She like reads them, and she just like.
What do you do with this?
You would not say that.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
That's how I actually work. Good. Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Wow, Michael. Thank you. Wow.
After 5, right? What's 35?
I was like, today I was like, and maybe you should start doing the work. I'm trying to give her a shout out. She was coming.
And then 5.
But she was saying that he gives us the answer that I'm saying that we all have a way. Exactly.
So in other words, they're all multiples of 1. So you can factor out the 5, right? Yes.
Diana?
What happens? What's 35 on 5? What's 45 on 5?
So you pull out.
These numbers have a constant.
See here.
No, I was talking more about the coefficients. 5, 30, 45 have what in common?
We're really slightly off our
I probably have my
So, in other words, you can factor out what? 5, right. Now they also have what else in common?
What's the other one? A?
Not just sitting next to Oh, okay. Okay. So, what do you think? What do you think factor out?
That's how
You have 5z squared, right? You have x plus 3, but you have twice. So how do you write that? Good. Yeah.
So the B is 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Control.
But okay, so if you're gonna put it as negative.
Don't worry about the negative sign.
Okay.
Don't worry about the negative sign. The negative sign is already rolled into it, so just treat B without the negative. So, number difference. So, it's 4 squared. 2.
So I start with this, what two numbers are?
Squared. What square is 4?
5 and 1, 5 plus 1 is 5. To give me
Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, here is that answer key. Okay.